Uhuru. That's how we do, right? Uhuru movement. All right, y'all. So we're going to get started back up again. We have a very important guest that had the ability to come through. And we want to recognize this very important brother that's been on the front lines as well. We talk about one Africa, one nation. We recognize that African people are on the same struggle throughout the world. And we also recognize this democratic revolutionary government in Venezuela. And we have a representative of the Venezuelan government that's here with us today, representing the Venezuelan embassy, the labor attaché, Comrade Marcos. If you could please come to the stage and just give a few words of solidarity and unity with African Liberation Day.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. It's for me always a pleasure to be in this type of activity with all the people that is trying to reorganize the movement on a, I will say, a sound base. We have been discussing in Venezuela about the problem of Afro organization recently with some activists. There are two students here, but they are with different agenda. It would be good for them to be here, but it was impossible. You know, in the case of Venezuela, we have like a net of different organizations. It's a young organization because the political agenda in Venezuela was developed, I think, with the Constitution of 1999. Before that, there was not a political agenda for Afro organization, just cultural. But right now, we have been involved in very important developments. For instance, 2 weeks ago, there was a discussion of the law against racism in Venezuela. That was pretty important because, you know, in Venezuela, the official opinion of the government, the elite, and even most of the people was that there was no racism in Venezuela. All of you know, we are like a kind of mixed people without that kind of problem. But right now, because of the effort of the Afro-Venezuelan organization, they are beginning to recognize that reality at the top level of the legislative, the National Assembly. They also approve an educational law in which they include the Afro-Venezuelan population as a specific sector of the population that needs some specific measures to take care of their needs. I will say that in general terms, we are right now we're working at the level of consciousness of the people that is in charge of the revolution, you know, the leadership. We have few leaders. They are very active. There was one of those guys here like 3 weeks ago, the member of Congress, who was the one that presented the law at the National Assembly, Comrade Modesto. One of the big problems that we have, or we are facing now, is that in relation to the international organization in the region. You should know that the conservative sector of the Afro-American, I wouldn't say Afro-American, but you know, Afro-Latino and Afro-American, just to make it better to understand. There will be a conference in Honduras. In that conference, they are trying to organize the international representation of Afro organization, black organization, in terms of like a strong connection with the government multilateral organization, the U.S. government and all the multilateral organization sector that is controlled by the white elite, as you will know. I would say that some of the members that are organizing that activity, they don't have a clear idea what they're doing. Others should have a clear idea of what they're doing. They just trying to connect. They're making a big effort to connect the Afro organizations all around Latin America with the policies developed by the imperialist sector of the U.S. That's what they're trying to do. Because of that, in Venezuela, there are some people discussing, they're trying to organize a conference in June to discuss the problem of international organization and connection, but from a perspective, left perspective. Still we're organizing, but I think the conference will be organizing from 20 to 22nd of June. So that's the big problem we have right now. There is a strong fight at the international level to see who is the representative of all our sector in the region. There is a big effort by the U.S. government and the Inter-American Development Bank and some sector of the United Nations to organize based on the agenda of the right-wing sector. We still trying, in Venezuela, we're trying to organize some kind of alternative. But it's still like a defensive move, you know? We don't have a clear agenda at the international level. And that's something that we are obliged to work in the following month, because right now is the time. We cannot wait. It won't be easy because, as you all know, there are different organizations, different people. Some of, even in Venezuela, we have a radical sector, a not so radical sector, but both revolutionary, but with differences. There will be always differences. But we need to have like an international agenda. We need to have like some kind of coordination, and we need to know who is who in each of our countries and connect. In the case of Venezuela, I think that the most important need that we have right now, and I've been talking with the brothers in Venezuela about that, is the connection with the Afro-Colombian movement, because of the strong situation they are facing right now. In Colombia, there are about 5 million of displaced people. That means like 12% of the population. It's a big amount of people displaced due to the repression, and because the transnational sector want to use the territory where the Afro-Colombian live traditionally to develop their projects. That is the main problem. So that's my message. There is something specific that needs to be done right now. I think that you have a role to play in that situation, as all of us. And if we can, connect and coordinate in some way, understanding the differences that we have, but at the same time that we have a need to organize and to develop an agenda, alternative agenda for the Afro and Black movement in the Americas. If we understand that, that's something that can be done and need to be done right now. Thank you for the opportunity and enjoy your celebration.
Uhuru. I want to thank Compañero Marcos. Part of what he's doing is just drawing our attention to what we've been talking about all along. That Africans are not organized. So Africans in Venezuela, Colombia, throughout the Americas, etc., sometimes we're not even conscious of our own identity, just like here, where Africans don't even know we're Africans, etc. But our oppressor is well organized. So even as we deny a relationship with each other, our oppressor recognizes that relationship that we have with each other. So the United States is in Honduras right now. The United States just engineered, just a few months ago, right? The United States engineered the overthrow of the president of Honduras. You remember that? And now the United States is there, and it is organizing Africans from throughout the Americas to participate in some kind of reactionary project that's tied to U.S. corporations and international finance capital, right, in Honduras. And they're attempting to organize Africans from throughout the Americas. Part of that reason for doing that is to struggle against the changing balance of power that's happening in the world. And one of the advanced entities dealing with that, making that balance of power change, has been Venezuela. As you know, the U.S. and imperialists hate Hugo Chavez. They hate what's happening in Venezuela. That's also contributed to a movement that we see happening in Bolivia, Ecuador, and other places throughout the Americas. So part of what they're doing to fight back, to deal with that balance of power, is they are dealing with the least organized of us, which are Africans. The U.S. did the same thing with the Nicaraguan Revolution. When the Nicaraguan Revolution happened, living on the Atlantic coast were black people like us, right, who spoke English because of how the imperialists had organized that territory in that area. And because they had been kept separate for a long time from their history as African people, and because Somoza had separated them from the rest of Nicaragua, the U.S. was able to use the Atlantic coast of Nicaragua as a way of sending CIA agents and what have you in to disrupt the revolutionary process in Nicaragua. And they would do the same thing if they could throughout the Americas, and that's one of the reasons they're organizing this thing in Honduras. So we're going to have an opportunity in June to go to Venezuela, to participate in this conference that they want to talk about black people, the Africans in the Americas. Because even though many of us were born in North America, Canada, United States, etc., and all of us are Africans, we are part of the revolution of the Americas as well. And that's something that we need to be conscious of. And really be appreciative that Venezuela gives us an opportunity to come together and organize with other Africans from throughout the Americas to define the reality for Africans and to not allow the United States to do that for us. So I'm really appreciative of Compañero Marcos coming to participate and to share this information with us and to express the opportunity that we have to go to Venezuela to participate in this conference in June. Uhuru. Is there anything that anybody would raise about this question? Because Marcos, he was telling us about how the U.S. is attempting to intervene, creating this right-wing kind of movement among black people that would try and shore up imperialism at a time imperialism is suffering defeats throughout South America and other parts of the world. Anybody? Yes, sister. Oh, the displaced people in Colombia. He was speaking about Colombia. Could you say anything more about that?
Well, the situation is the following. In 1992, I think there was approved a constitution in which the Afro-Colombian got the right to have collective property to land. So the land doesn't belong to just one person, but to all the people that live in the territory. Because of that, it has been very difficult for the corporation to try to appropriate of those land because people didn't agree with that. It's difficult. It was easy when they just took the land of just one person, right. But a collective land is more difficult. So what they're doing is just using paramilitary guys to attack the civil population, kill the leaders. On the other hand, with a multilateral project, they try to organize other part of the leader and link that leadership to the traditional power of the Colombian elite, the U.S. sectors at international level. But at the same time, we have the problem, 5 million persons that are outside their lands, living, I don't know how, most of them are Afro-Colombian and indigenous, and a lot of them peasants from the countryside. That's the situation we have there. Right now, there is a discussion here where they are trying to approve a free trade agreement. If they approve that free trade agreement, the situation for that population will be worse, because it will be like legalizing the situation of expropriation, the violation of human rights, killing, and all what they're doing with the poor population in Colombia, Afro-Colombians and indigenous. That's more or less the situation. Well, they're living, many of them, they're living in the big cities without any support. Some of them, or many of them are living in Venezuela. They travel to Venezuela, those that live in the border. And other are, there are some kind of support by the organization of the United Nations. They have a program to take care of the displaced people. But in general terms, the situation is really difficult. Most of them are not recognized as displaced people. You know, they are just people. So nobody take care of them. Well, they have some points to discuss. Many of them are related to the situation of the African population in the Americas, different areas, cultural, political, organizational. At the same time, they are discussing the situation of the development, or the policy development of the U.S., specifically targeting the African population in the Americas. That's some of the discussion we're going to organize. I was telling the chairman that in Venezuela, this type of conference is sometimes funny, you know, because here we are used to planify, organize a conference like 1 year before, 2 years before. They're discussing about this conference because of proposal we make in like some 6 months ago. I'm sure they're going to organize a conference, but there is nothing formal yet, official. You know, you call them, okay, yes, we're going to organize a conference. So, do you have any information of official? No, we don't have anything. So that's the situation. But I think they're going to organize a conference because it's a need. And part of our leadership in Venezuela understand that that's something that needs to be done, because, you know, it's something that is like a responsibility, you know, because we know that they are working in an international project in the continent. So there should be somebody trying to face the situation, you know, organize some kind of coordination and participation of our organization.
Uhuru, I think that what's going to be really important is Africans here must play a big role there. I think we should try to be there and try to really influence that, because one thing, who can expose U.S. interests in terms of African people better than us? Who can say we know what the U.S. intends for black people, you know, in the Americas better than us? So I think it's going to be really important that we can be there, and I think that we have a lot to contribute in terms of a programmatic response that we might try to win Africans in the Americas too, to, you know, like begin, you know, moving in a progressive trajectory as opposed to imperialism, you know, Uhuru. Yes, Mafrika.
Well, the official position of the Venezuela government is that we're against that kind of intervention of any country. That's our position. But I think that the other governments have a kind of understanding of what they're doing. I think it's wrong, very wrong, you know. And in that area, we have a lot of differences, even in terms of the cooperation with Haiti. Most of the country of ALBA have been helping in different areas like Cuba, Venezuela, Bolivia. We have a lot of projects there. There are failures, but still we are helping, and we have a strong investment in Haiti. But that's a situation that we're still facing. How much pressure? I don't know. What we're trying to do is just developing that like level of coordination inside the region. Right now we have UNASUR, that is an organization of South American states to discuss our own problem. There will be an organization of Latin American countries without Canada and the US. So that we're trying to do, like build some kind of institution to make our own decision. But that's a situation that have been there for a long time. I don't know how we're going to solve that. We just have our position. That's
Comrade, one of the things that we've learned through our work with the Venezuelan is that they have these state-to-state relationships with different kinds of entities, including some like in Africa, who we find appalling. But the other thing that they are attempting to do is establish relationships on the ground, like with other kinds of forces, such as what's in this room today, and not just here, but in various other places around the world. So even though they may have state-to-state relationships, other kinds of things can begin to emerge and develop, and that's what I think is really important that we have to take on. The sister here is I think she's going to do something terrible to me if I don't. And the sister back here was seconding that. So I think that we've been told that we have to get down from here in order to forward this agenda. But that's the thing that we're looking for. That's the reason this relationship is important to us, because there's limits in terms of what the Venezuelan government can do. What the Venezuelan people can do in relationship to African people here and other places, that's a different thing altogether. And if you have a friendly government in Venezuela that's friendly to the aspirations of the people here, then that offers up certain kinds of suggestions or possibilities as well. Uhuru.
Uhuru, and thank you. Yeah.